So easy, so fast, absolutely stunning. Hands down, one of the easiest Hoya to grow. Are you a Hoya lover? If so, you're in the right place. In today's video, I will be talking about my top 10 Hoya of 2025. This was a little bit challenging, I'm not gonna lie, to narrow down all of my Hoya into my top 10. But to make it a little bit more interesting, not just a video about the biggest Hoya that I have, I've created different categories to sort of make things a little bit more interesting. If you're new here, hi, my name is Stephanie. I love all houseplants, well, all the houseplants, but Hoya is my current favorite genus. The first category we're going to talk about are the two comebacks. So basically those are the two Hoya that at the beginning of the year, they weren't looking good. Not gonna lie. They were looking scruffy. I wasn't sure if they were gonna make it. But right now, in November of 2025, they are looking amazing and they have made a comeback. So we're gonna focus on two of those. The next one are the fastest growers. So I'm gonna go through my Hoya collection, find the two fastest growing Hoya to share with you. And where I can, I think I'll also try to insert footage of what they looked like at the beginning of the year and what they look like now. I think I have an entire Hoya collection video from the fall of 2024. So that would be a great place to go to take a peek at what they looked like before. And then if you want, you could check out that video to see all the other Hoya that I had at that time. The next category is going to be the show-offs. The show-offs are the ones that are sporting beautiful variegation or splashing. They really capture my attention and I'm in love with when it comes to that. And then the last one will be my two MVPs. These will be my favorite two Hoya, like hands down, my favorite Hoya. They sort of are a little bit of all the categories and I can't get enough of them. I'm excited. Let's get started. The first comeback of today's video is this guy. This is my Hoya Kentiana, my Hoya Kentiana variegated. This one was looking really rough at the beginning of the year. Whenever I go on vacation, my plants take quite a bit of a hit and my Kentiana took a hit. Earlier this year, I went to Barbados for 3 weeks. And I think when this got watered while I was away, it got watered from the top. So it suffered some major rotting and leaves were just falling off like crazy. I think on camera with my members, like my Patreon and YouTube members, I filmed a video where I did sort of like an SOS treatment of this plant. And I'm so glad to report some 10 months later, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, 9 months later, it is doing so good. A lot of people talk about how easy this plant is to grow for them, and that has never been the case for me. This one has always been a bit of a challenge. I felt like the leaves on this plant drop quite easily, and so I've always struggled with it, but I'm not gonna lie, I am so surprised that this plant is one of my biggest comebacks. So the Kentiana, if we just take a look at the leaf shape here, let's talk about the leaves. It has these long taco-like leaves, and it has this inner creamish, sometimes white variegation. And when you give it high amounts of light, the new leaves especially will give you this beautiful pinkish look to them. Or sometimes some leaves will come out with absolutely no green on them and just all variegation, and they look absolutely stunning. I think I'll try to find a picture of it. They will hang on to the purely variegated leaves for longer than you'd think, for a pretty long time. Not like other plants where they tend to like shrivel up and fall off easily. But anyways, this one is definitely a huge surprise for me. When I was going through the collection looking for the comebacks, I was like, this one is a comeback. Like this one was on the brink. Yeah, but it made it back and I'm so glad that it did. It's quite thirsty. I have to try my best to stay on top of the watering. It just like most Hoya, I would say. If you've watched my contrary to popular opinion, I don't think Hoya should be allowed to dry out for very long or at all. I think to have the fastest growth, you need to keep your Hoya hydrated. And so this is definitely one of those Hoya that if I let the reservoir go really dry, I start to encounter a little bit of problems. She doesn't like to stay dry for very long. Mine, that is. Anyways, my Kentiana is growing in Molly's aeroid mix on the inside and in a self-watering pot. And one thing I will mention for this plant is whenever this reservoir gets gunky, for this plant especially, please clean out the reservoir. I was one of those believers who didn't think that you needed to clean out the reservoir. I mean, for optics, for visuals, it looks better clean, but I've heard people say that the algae did not affect the roots. I disagree. I think they do. I think they drink up or use up all of the oxygen in the water, and the water gets stale faster, and I find the plant suffers. So be sure, especially for this plant, to refresh the water if it's not using up all the water quickly. And just for a little bit of lighting context, if you look behind me here, it's growing under some Sansi grow lights. Right here, it's been growing there in that corner for a long time. So I think it likes it there. And the second plant of our comeback category is this guy. I don't think this will surprise you if you watched my hard Hoya video, the updated one. This is my Hoya Waymaniae. I always think it's a cloudy sky, but it's not. This is my Hoya Waymaniae, and it's just, I'm surprised. Like, look at that. I know she has a lot of long tendrils. I know, but I leave them, but I'm excited. Let's look at the leaves first. It has these very round coin-like shaped leaves. It reminds me of an obovata. Now that I look at it like on camera, it does give me the obovata vibes when it comes to the leaf shape. They're very coin-like. They're not too big. They're a little bit on the round side, on the small side. What am I saying? They're a little bit on the small side, and they have these jagged edges that remind me a little bit of the Hoya Gunangaring, but it's not as rigid as a Gunangaring, but it's not smooth. It's not a smooth plant at all. It has, I think, the cloudy sky. Some people say the cloudy sky version of this plant has more splashing and has a different leaf shape. That might be true, but this one has very, very minimal splashing to it. So this was sold to me, or actually was gifted to me by Genus Plants in January of 2024. And for a long time, this plant did absolutely nothing. Actually, that's why she gave it to me, because she was so fed up of it. And she's like, you know what, do you want to give it a go? And I was like, sure, I'll never say no to a new plant. And at that time I was collecting Hoya like crazy. So I got this one from her and I tried really hard. I had it in self-watering. It would do nothing. I tried really hard, and all that I was left to do was chop it up. I chopped it up into small pieces. I tried rooting some in water. I put some to root in Bolly's arid mix. They all rooted up really well. And then eventually I just stuck them all together, and I think it could have had flat mites. I wouldn't be surprised if this plant had flat mites. Made sure to spray it down a bunch to get rid of any mites it might have. At the time I was using horticultural oil for pest treatment, and here we are. She is quite happy. I am just so proud of this plant. I'm so proud of how far it has come. I don't look at it from this angle very often. So looking at it on camera, it actually makes me really excited because she's come such a long way. Beautiful, beautiful. Jenna, if you want a cutting, you can have one. You can have one. I'm hoping that it will bloom for me soon. It has never bloomed for me as yet, but I can see it coming. I can see that coming in the near future. She's growing in a west-facing window. It doesn't need a ton of light. I feel like all green Hoya do not need that much light. And so anyways, she's been fine growing in the west window. I would say that when you allow, just like a lot of Hoya, when you allow this one to climb, or when it feels like the leaves are pointing upward, you will get some smaller internodal spacing. You will get a fuller look. Well, once the leaves start to feel like they're vining downward and they're not climbing upward, you see how big this internodal spacing is? It'll get really big, and the leaves will take longer before they start growing. But the vines don't bother me because eventually the leaves will start growing on the vine. Growing in, I think this is my DIY chunky mix in a self-watering pot. It is quite a thirsty plant, so I do have to try really hard to stay on top of the watering, but it's easy going. It's one of those Hoya that if you let it dry out for a little longer, it will tolerate it. It's not like my Kentiana, or it will kick up a fuss. If I let it dry out, it's pretty easy going. But anyways, that's this guy. This is one of my biggest comebacks of the year. So there you have it, the Hoya Waymaniae. If you want to know what my different locations look like, I have an entire recent Hoya collection tour where we walk and talk and I show you where my Hoya live. Instead of just bringing them to the camera, you can see where they are in the window and what their growing conditions are. And for most of these plants, they're pretty much in the same growing conditions as this video. as that video. Just looked at my list and realized that I have one more comeback. I felt like one was missing. And the missing plant, definitely one of the biggest comebacks of the year for me, is the Hoya Rangsan. The Hoya Rangsan is a plant that I really struggled to grow for over a year. I feel like the first Rangsan I got, I lost it completely. I couldn't get it to root. Granted, it was when I first started growing Hoya. I couldn't get it to root. Jenna so kindly replaced that plant for me because I bought it from her. And I think I lost this one, lost all the leaves, went all the way down, I think to either 1 or 2 leaves. I want to say it was 1 leaf, but let's say 2, just to leave room for error. And I just could not figure this plant out. And one day I had it growing in this cabinet, and during the late winter, I would say, when the sun is really low in the sky, the sun would come in through my west window here and hit the plant. Actually, it wasn't a cabinet, it was a shelf. I used to have like the IKEA Vitjo shelf right here, and it used to hit the plant right on that shelf there. And that's when I noticed it started really growing. It started pushing out lots of new growth, pushing out new peduncles and all of that. And from that moment on, when I realized that, I decided to put it into my west facing window and let it sit in the window. And that is when, if you've been following me from like earlier in the year, you would remember when it started pushing out a bunch of peduncles. It had over 15 peduncles. And I remember a lot of people commented and saying, or a few people commented and said, oh, that's when a Hoya is about to croak. That's when it'll push out a bunch of peduncles to try to save itself. Maybe that's true, but this guy did not croak. And yes, it's pushed out many flowers since then. And after a while, it stopped pushing out flowers. It started focusing on new growth. Oh no, I'm sorry. That's what always happens. Whenever I take my plants out, I always sort of nick them. Oh, another peduncle at the tip here. Oh man, this plant. Anyways, yeah, I just nicked it. It started pushing out new leaves, and I think recently it started focusing on blooms again. So we have some more peduncles coming out, and then the blooms are trying to open up. They're not opening all the way, actually. No, they are opening, because I do remember coming in a few days ago and smelling some blooms. Anyways, yeah, that's the long version of the history of this plant with me. Like I said, I had it in my west window for a very long time. And just recently, I would say in the past 2 weeks, I moved it and put it in front of my standing Barina grow light over there. And it seems to be okay there. It's only been 2 weeks. It hasn't stopped growing. If anything, it started pushing out some new peduncles and some new growth points, but it seems to be doing okay. This plant, I've noticed, just likes really high amounts of light, especially sunlight. It loves direct sunlight. And I feel like that's a theory that I have with not just this Hoya, but for most of my Hoya. I find a lot of my Hoya prefer direct sunlight. So that's why I find a lot of my viewers in the lower US or in places that get lots of sunnier lots of sunlight, they're always like, why are you doing too much with your Hoya? Why are you struggling? Mine are growing great. I'm like, yes, I live in Canada. I don't get nearly as much sunlight as you do, like nearly. I depend on grow lights. So considering that, I feel like this plant is doing really well and I'm really proud of it and I want to celebrate it. It has only ever grown well for me in a semi-hydro setup. First 2 times I tried, I added in molly's aeroid mix, and you know how much I love molly's. It still was starting to croak and rot. And then I just dumped it in perlite, like the chunky perlite, and a couple leca balls, and that's when it thrived. So I feel like this is definitely one for me. It grows better in semi-hydro, and it's in my DIY pond in here in a self-watering pot. And that's this guy. That's the history of my Rangsan. I'm so proud of it, and hopefully it'll keep growing beautifully for me, but it's definitely still quite small. It's one of the slower growers for me, but that's okay. It's okay. It prefers to bloom. That's fine. Okay, now it's time for the fastest grower category. In this category of the fastest growers, I only have 2 Hoya to share. I probably do have more, but this is my effort to not show you my entire Hoya collection. So I've narrowed it down consistently fast. These 2 are like the first 2 that come to my mind. The first one is the Hoya Crassipetiolata. My Hoya Crassi has always been one of my fastest growing Hoya. I just feel like this Hoya on a whole is a fast growing Hoya. If you have this plant and it's not growing quickly for you or giving you a hard time, you need to check on something. Either check on your water, check for mites like pests, or check on something, because this is hands down one of the easiest Hoya to grow. And I don't just think for me, I just think in general, when I go to nurseries, they're always super big and like they're super easy. So this one, I've had it for, like I said, about a year and a half, if not a year. And it grows in, I think, Molly's arid mix. No, it's growing in my DIY mix. And it grows in my south facing window. A lot of my Hoya in my south facing window are very happy. They're one of my best performers. They do really well. It's one of them. She has this beautiful, beautiful splash. Like, it was a really great specimen. I cannot remember who I got it from. I think it was from someone on Facebook Marketplace. A lot of times I get asked where I buy my Hoya. I buy my Hoya on Facebook Marketplace, usually, or a nursery that's near my home, but mostly Facebook Marketplace and Jenna's Plants. She's huge on Instagram. I'll leave her handle down below, but usually that's where I'm getting my Hoya from. She has bloomed for me a few times this year and she has not stopped. I think when I came home from my 3-week trip, she had bloomed again. She had blooms on her. One thing though, I've never noticed a scent to the blooms. So I don't think I think it's just a very mild rose-like scent. I don't quite know what it smells like, but there's none to mine. The next fastest grower is one that will not surprise you if you've been on my channel a while. It's one of the easiest Hoya, probably the easiest Hoya in my collection. And it is the Hoya, I believe it's the Sp Burtoniae. This Hoya, like, come on. Come on. I got this Hoya maybe about, I think it was August of 2024. And it was this tiny little plant. I bought it from my local nursery. And this Hoya, the epitome of an easy Hoya, just an easy plant overall. And I had it growing in the same pot for a really long time. And recently, I think maybe a month or 2 months ago, I repotted it. This plant, so easy, so fast. It has these beautifully variegated leaves when you give it lots of light. It's a little bit velvet-like. It has a little tiny bit of pubescence on the top. And when you give it very high amounts of light, it will trigger the variegation. It will get really bright. But the less light it gets, the leaves will get a little bit more of a muted green color, especially as it matures. This plant, I remember everyone saying it was a really easy bloomer. And I remember thinking, that plant, no, it's not. I had it for over a year and it hadn't bloomed. And I'm like, no, that's not true. But just be patient. Once the plant gets established and mature, the key word, is going to bloom for you. And this has not stopped blooming. And I think it started blooming for me maybe 4 or 5 months ago. And it is a continuous bloomer. It will just keep going over and over and over and over. It's just a very, very generous bloomer. A lot of people say it smells like salted caramel. I think it smells like apple cider vinegar. I don't hate the smell, but sometimes at night when I'm in my bedroom, because that's where it lives, I would smell something. I'm like, oh, what's that smell? And then I would think about it a little bit more, and then I would remember, oh, right, it's my Burtoniae. But again, such an easy, very easy Hoya. It does not lose leaves easily. It really hangs on to the leaves. And I didn't even do a good job at repotting it. Here I am exposing myself. When I put it in, I did not put it in deep enough, and you could see a bunch of roots at the top here. So eventually when I repot it again in the future, I'm going to have to put it in a little bit deeper. But even with this botch of a repotting, it's still happy, still pushing out new growth, getting really long. It's in my DIY mix in a self-watering pot, growing in my west window on the top shelf. So she gets direct light whenever we have sunshine. And that's it. Very, very easy Hoya. I love it. It gets a 10 out of 10 for me. If you want something easy, worry-free, this is the Hoya for you. All right, so the next category, my show-offs. Let's take a look. I said I had 10 plants. I feel like I have more than 10. The first show-off is this one. This is my Hoya Sunrise. The Hoya Sunrise, beautiful, beautiful plant. I love it. I think it's the combination of the Hoya obscura and something else. I will not pretend to know what it's crossed with. But the Hoya Sunrise is not a difficult Hoya to come by. It's available in a lot of nurseries. I do see it around quite a bit, and I did get mine from my local nursery about maybe a year-ish ago. And it was a pretty tiny plant when I got it. And it's pretty easy going, not gonna lie. It's actually one of the easiest Hoya as well. Not quite as easy as the Sp af Burtoniae, but it's really up there in like probably in one of the top 10 easiest Hoya. But anyways, the reason why it's in my show off category is because of the beautiful sun stressing. This Hoya has some of the most gorgeous, gorgeous sun stressing, which it has lost quite a bit of because we're in fall, we're getting less sunlight. Definitely not as sun stressed as it was in the summertime. But in the summer, for the better part of the year, it's sun stressed so beautifully. This beautiful red color. I would just look at it in pure amazement just because of just how stunning it is, just how beautiful the leaves are. And again, I would say it's a show off because she's a very generous bloomer. Even when she's doing well, she blooms. Even when she's struggling, she blooms. She blooms all the time. Like she has multiple peduncles on here, and like I said, she's easy-ish going. She does not like to dry out for very long. That's when she starts to complain a little bit by getting a little yellow. And I don't know if you remember, but I think I had a walkthrough video before I went on my trip. And remember when she was super yellow? I didn't know why she was so yellow, but like a lot of the yellow has subsided. She looks a lot better now. I put her under my Sansi grow lights about 2 weeks ago, and she's doing better. I do notice that she gets yellow when she's under stressed and when I underwater her, but when I stay on top of the watering and I spray her with some orchid spray, she is a happy camper. So this one, definitely one of my show-offs. This is my Sunrise. This one is also in the same family as the last plant I showed you, and this one is my Tequila Sunrise. It's losing a leaf here and I want to put it off, but it's not quite ready to let it go yet. So we're gonna leave it there, but it does look like a beautiful color. Like as it's sun stressed and it's yellowing. It's a gorgeous color, but it's not ready to be detached yet. So I will leave it. But anyways, my Tequila Sunrise has been a steady grower for me. This one could also have fallen into the comeback category because this plant was a one-leafed wonder for years. I got this plant again, I think in January of 2023. So that was almost 2 years ago since I've had this plant, and it was just one leaf for the majority of that time. I cannot remember what I did to get it to recover. Definitely would say putting it into a self-watering pot and spraying it regularly for pests definitely are some of the top things I did to help this plant to get to where it is now. But again, the sun stressing on this plant is next level. It is gorgeous. It gives you this beautifully deep burgundy color. Like I mentioned, I'm losing a lot of my sun stressing because of the weather. We have shorter days, and the grow lights can sun stress, but they don't quite do it as easily as of the real deal, as natural sunlight. But during the summertime, this was gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. It took a lot for me not to talk about this plant all the time on my channel, and lovely. Without sun stressing, this is how the leaves look, just like this regular green color, which I still love. They're so glossy. They have a little bit of raised veins, and they're beautiful. And as you can see, they're super big because I've been spraying them with orchid spray recently. I've been trying to spray my plants and fertilize them. It's not one of the fastest growing Hoya in my collection. By no means, it's not one of the generous bloomers. It's just beautiful big leaves and sun stressing. That's what I love. It did bloom for me, I think 2 or 3 times from this peduncle, and it gave some of the most spectacular blooms. Even the blooms were sun stressed. It was just chef's kiss. It was beautiful. I really appreciate this plant. And I remember I wanted it for all the things that I'm raving to you about. And when I got the one cutting from that person for $5, I was just like, I don't think this is a real Tequila Sunrise. And she was like, yes, it is. And I'm so glad she really did sell me a Tequila Sunrise, and I love it. I know there are lots of like huge, gigantic, gorgeous. I know Hakuna La Planta has like a huge, gorgeous Tequila Sunrise goals. That would be great. But in the meantime, I like the size of this. I don't mind, and I'm able to have way more plants by having little plants, and I'm enjoying the journey. Oh, and he's usually in my south window, but now he's growing under Barina grow lights, and the grow lights have done a really good job of trying to keep the sun stressing. Let's keep on going. So the next show off that I have to share with you, whew, she's a big one. This is my Hoya Carnosa Freckles Splash. Yes, she is definitely a show off. She is a very fast grower. She has these big, beautiful splashy leaves, and she's absolutely stunning. So stunning. I thought of making her one of my MVPs, but no, I think she rightly deserves to be in one of the show-offs section because she is just amazing. She is the first Carnosa to ever bloom for me. I just am in love with this highly, highly splashy leaves. Recently, she has been under attack either by mites or thrips, or maybe because I repotted her recently, she didn't quite like the repot. I don't know, but she hasn't been her usual self. I would say she's probably 80%. She's not quite doing as she's not at her best right now, but still she's amazing. She started to yellow again. Remember when I told you that some of my plants in my south window were starting to yellow? She was also starting to yellow. So I always wondered if it was a combination of they were underwatered or they were getting too much light in my south window as the sun was starting to become lower in the sky again. But she definitely has overcome that yellowed look that she had. And I moved it just before I went on my trip. So it was risky because to give her a big move from south facing to Sansi grow lights, I feel like that was risky, but she handled it like a champ and she's doing well. Such was at 80%. Maybe she's at 85, 90%. So look at the gorgeous leaves. Sorry, I'm babbling so much, but let me just ask you ever so kindly to take a look at these beautiful splashy leaves. I'm looking at my viewfinder. I cannot quite see. She definitely has a lot more green in it than before. When she was a lot more juvenile, I used to really try very hard to keep only really splashy leaves. And then I sort of lost track of that. And so now she has some of the more green leaves and like leaves with more green than splash, but still very beautiful. And like I mentioned, she's been blooming and the blooms, oh, people say Carnosa blooms smell like chocolate. I don't think so. I think they just smell like roses. But look at this. Absolutely stunning. Just stunning. And she never bloomed for me. And then when I came home on my trip, that's when I smelled like this is new, and I saw she had these big, beautiful, red, fuzzy blooms. Just gorgeous, just simply gorgeous. Very beautiful. And she now has multiple peduncles. She has another one here, another peduncle here, another peduncle here. She's just, yeah, she's popping off like crazy. So, oh my goodness. Wow, she has way more peduncles. I just showed you 1, 2, 3, 4 peduncles, but she has 3 more inside here that look like they've already bloomed before. So she is pretty happy. She is pretty happy. If you want to get a Carnosa Freckles splash, I definitely recommend looking for a splashy specimen. It's very rare for a non-splashy plant to give you very splashy leaves. It takes a lot of work, a lot of patience. You'll have to keep chopping it back. Not saying it's impossible, but it's difficult and less likely. Again, growing in my DIY chunky mix in a self-watering pot under Sansi lights, but have been in my south-facing window for the majority of the year. So now we are down to the last 2 Hoya, my favorite Hoya. These are 2 Hoya that I always want to have in my collection. If I had to lose all my plants, these are probably the first 2 Hoya one of the first 2 that I will rush out to go buy again. One of the ones definitely 100% that I will run out go buy. The other one, 80%. I will go get it, but you know. Anyways, the first one, let's talk about the latter of the two. A lot of you are familiar with this plant. This is my Hoya Wilbur Graves China. It is a beautifully delightful plant. I bought it from Jenna's Plants. Again, I buy a lot of my plants from her. I got it in January of 2024. I think it was a 2-leaf cutting or a 4-leaf cutting when I got it. I don't quite remember. I might put some B-roll or a photo. And I have since grown that plant from that tiny little thing to this beautiful plant you see here. You might wonder why it's not bigger if I've had it for almost 2 years, but it's because whenever it gives me a less than heavily variegated leaf, I will chop that off and sort of try to encourage very silver-like, almost splashy leaves. So that's why I am able to enjoy such a splashy plant, because that's what I try to encourage the plant to do. I do keep most of the non-splashy leaves and I have a separate plant with them, and these non-splashy leaves have already bloomed for me and all of that, that non-splashy plant. But anyways, that's this guy. I'm just so in love with the leaf shape. It's like a baby version of my Carnosa Freckles, just a more oval and sometimes elongated leaf. And it's super easy, such an easygoing plant. I've talked about it a million times on my channel, and yeah, I'm trying right now to get it to grow even bigger, even faster. But I do think, like I've mentioned, that I do have either some flat mites. I think flat mites are on my plants right now. And so they're not growing as quick as they used to. So that doesn't bother me as much, but yes, I do need to spray them down regularly and get them treated. Apart from that, this is definitely one of my loves. Love this plant. There was a time where I talked about this plant all the time on my channel. Just absolutely love it. It lived a lot in my south facing window. Again, you'd notice a trend. The plants in direct sunlight, especially in my south window, are the ones that perform the best. Yeah, this one was in my south window for most of the year. And then recently, I would say within the past couple of weeks, I popped it into one of my cabinets. So right now it lives in a cabinet under the Barina puck lights. I recently shifted some of my plants around, and the reason that I did that is because I want to use cabinet beneficials on them. I feel like they're effective. The cabinet beneficials are good and they're cheaper, so that's why I put it into a cabinet. But this is one of my loves. She has tried to bloom for me. It has a peduncle, but nothing has happened just yet from that. It's definitely a little bit harder to bloom, not like my Freckles, that's just like a blooming. Okay, one more plant left to show you, my absolute favorite Hoya. If you know me, if you've been watching my channel, I'm sure you already know which Hoya I'm going to talk about. But before I show you this plant, I want to say thank you so much for watching my channel. If you haven't done so already, please consider subscribing. It's free of charge and it keeps us in touch. Without further ado, my favorite Hoya of 2025, my favorite Hoya of 2024, my favorite Hoya in general is one that I didn't even like in the beginning. My mom was in love with it, and then after I fell in love with it, it is the Hoya Kentiana. This Hoya, I lost all my Hoya. It is the plant, the very first Hoya that I would run out to get. Absolutely in love with this plant. I've tried to grow this plant multiple times. I've lost a lot of this plant, but I love it. I love it so much. I love the beautiful variegation, the cute tiny little leaves. It's so cute. I love how pink they get when the new leaves are emerging, and it's just stunning. A big cascading version of this plant is really beautiful. It's so eye-catching and it's lovely. Mine is growing in Molly's aeroid mix with a little bit of my mix and in a self-watering pot. I find that when this plant is juvenile, it is very difficult. She needs to be blasted with light. When I see, especially in videos of people's Kentianas not in the brightest spot in their home, I'm like, how is that possible? Mine needs its dedicated fancy light. It needs a dedicated light beaming on it in order to get this. And yeah, so in the beginning of the year, like I mentioned, when I went away to Barbados for 3 weeks, I again almost lost this plant. When I went on vacation and I came back, I saw it had an aphid on it, but the aphid was unalived. I panicked and I did too much I did too much. And so I lost quite a bit of the plant in my panic. But I've learned from that and just learned to take it easy. This plant would benefit from higher humidity. It doesn't need it, but it will do much better for you if it does have higher humidity. But number one, first and foremost, blast it with light. Never let it completely dry out, and this plant will do well for you. It does have a lot of all green vines, which I find just a teensy bit annoying. I've tried to cut them back, and I actually have a whole separate plant with all green vines, which is also very cute, very pretty. But again, I'm all about like the variegation. It finally bloomed for me. Camera, there we go. So I think you can see right here, we have the peduncle here. A lot of them have opened up already. It doesn't have any like remarkable scent to it. And then what I tried doing as well at the top, I tried wrapping around, because it does have aerial roots that stick out. So I tried wrapping one of the vines around at the top and pinning it in to sort of encourage some more growth. I'm not sure if, yeah. Ooh, yes, it did work because it's starting to push out. Don't know if you could see it right there. New growth point from wrapping it around. So yeah, try that. I'm not confident about cutting it and sticking it back in. I think I've tried that and it didn't quite work, but wrapping it around is a safe way to go. And that's it for today's video on my top 10 or something favorite Hoya for 2025. Tell me, what are your favorite Hoya of the year? Which Hoya did beautifully for you? But even if they're maybe not big and beautiful, which Hoya have you enjoyed the journey of? Like which ones, like my comebacks, which ones sort of are you proud of that you got it to get established and doing well? Which one makes you happy? Tell us all down below and give this video a thumbs up. If you watched all the way to the end, please drop a black heart in the comment section. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you in the next one.